it is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce Adrian Oltanu from Microsoft Corporation. So Adrian, if you don't mind to um, share your video, and okay, great. And you probably can hear me and we can hear you. Testing.
Yes, I can, and I'm hoping that you can
Okay,
hear me as well.
we can hear you very well. So welcome to the symposium, and thank you very much for being with us. So Adrian is going to share with us how Microsoft is applying production management, project production management processes, principles, methodologies to effectively synchronize the supply of data center equipment with obviously a required demand from data center construction sites. Before I allow Adrian to take us through that story, let me say a few things about him. And I think, Adrian, people need to understand who you are, and you have a significant amount of experience. So let me share with them a bit of your background. Adrian is currently the director of data center lease strategy for Microsoft. Together with his colleagues at Microsoft, he has been directly involved in the adoption of PPM for supply optimization. Prior to Microsoft, he was a senior manager, portfolio management advisory for Ernst & Young, and also he held several roles at Franco Retail, including becoming the CEO and running the organization. As you can see, Adrian brings a breadth of experience, and we're lucky to have him here with us today. Adrian will handle his presentation a little bit different than what you have seen. He will verbally describe what Microsoft is doing and the journey they have gone through. So thanks again for being with us, Adrian, and this is over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me here today. It's been a very interesting day listening to what has been discussed prior to now, and I wouldn't like to repeat what has been said. Obviously, we went through a similar journey. We have faced similar challenges, and I would like to maybe come up with a different flavor and discuss more a little bit about the challenges that we've seen in adapting, and the pressure on our organization to adapt, and the pressure on our partners in understanding that we're not trying to convert them to a different religion, but we are trying to implement best practices and do the right thing so that we can ultimately achieve together, and this is a very important element, together, better results. I'm sharing my screen right now, and you should be able to see it's a nice image of our global network of data centers. And before diving into what we've seen in our journey, started more than 2 years ago, I believe actually 3 years ago, in implementing a production system. I'll share a few things about what we do. So at Microsoft, the software, obviously, it's one of the products very well known that we are delivering to our customers. The hardware, it's another one, the Surface devices and Xbox and other hardware devices. But we believe that the data center, it's probably a third product that we are building, that is powering the entire ecosystem of physical products, and then software that is powering them. We have today close to 300 data centers globally, and we are growing at a rapid rate. Our capital investment, it's in the range of $20 billion a year in building and leasing data center capacity from external providers. When we started our the implementation of production system journey, probably 3 years ago, we started as has been mentioned, with rationalizing the procurement of equipment, of long lead equipment that is being deployed in our own data centers. We complemented that initial work stream about a year ago with expanding the program to managing the procurement of leased data centers. So the first part was equipment that goes into the data centers that we are building. The second one is the capacity, the data center capacity that we are procuring from external providers. And there are lots of learnings that I would like to share with you. First, the challenges, why we thought about doing it. We started with very simple things that have been mentioned earlier today. We did not know exactly how many projects we have in flight. As simple as it might sound, this is a problem that probably lots of organizations are facing. So we wanted to know with higher level of confidence how many projects are in flight at any given time. How long does it take for the projects to be completed? We had a pretty fair or reasonable understanding of assumption that it's taking longer than it should take and longer than what we were expecting. So one of the third element in our journey has been to set up the goals for how long it should take to either procure equipment, for the equipment to be manufactured, ultimately for the procurement to be shipped and installed and be part of the final product, which is the data center. So these were some of the say common data center common challenges, and it took us probably 9 months to have good visibility into the body of work and to start thinking about the fact that we need to standardize our processes so that the next delivery will be similar to the previous one, and not every project will be unique in itself. We ended up having more than 100 standard processes that we created in the system. Each of them mapped to different providers of equipment and different equipment types, from let's say an air handling unit or a generator or any other mechanical or electrical types of equipment that we are using. And the way we came to have those standard processes has been by visiting the manufacturing sites of our providers and working together with them on defining the standard process, the standard steps that they are taking in order to procure their components for the equipment that they are producing for us, and then the actual manufacturing, to identify the idle time between steps and to identify the buffer areas that we created, and how we can optimize. Having as ultimate goal or ultimate goals three main KPIs. On one hand, we wanted to reduce the cycle time, the amount of time needed from between placing the order to finally having the equipment delivered. We started from a very high number initially. We refined it to somewhere in the, depending on the equipment, 6 to 9 months as cycle time, and we set us a goal to reduce to cut that in half, to reduce it by 50%. And we managed to achieve that probably another year later. So first 9 months were dedicated to implementing the program, then the next 12 months to start driving the efficiency. The second KPI, in addition to reducing cycle time, has been to eliminate the unplanned, we call it unplanned buffer. We noticed that, just to give a few examples, we had equipment being shipped to the construction site 2 months prior to it being needed at the construction site. In the case of some large equipment, not even having the concrete pad for the equipment to be positioned in that final place. So when looking at those items, we understood that it also what we call unplanned buffer, and it was an opportunity to eliminate that unplanned buffer, and having as a consequence a reduction in the overall cycle time. And the third KPI for us has been the on-time delivery performance. When we looked at how many pieces of equipment and then how many projects are being delivered on time, we saw that we are somewhere below 70%, which is not such a bad number, but it's not where we wanted it to be at 100% on-time delivery. So almost 3 years now into the project, we are at consistently above 90%, very close to 95% on-time delivery. So from 70 to 95, it's a significant achievement, because we also managed to reduce the cycle time almost in half. during this entire journey. So this has been our the challenges that we tackled and the goals that we set for our first project that leverage production system principles, manufacturing of equipment, delivering of equipment to construction sites, and the installation of those pieces of equipment. Now, what we've learned, and this should not come as a surprise, is variability. It's very important, and we have the typical sources of variability, but we realized again, not as a surprise necessarily, but we realized again that the human factor is bringing a lot of variability. The resistance to change, it's a factor of variability that cannot be ignored. And let me double down on this one for a moment. As a good best practice, we started having weekly production, we're calling production control meetings, including our providers, the manufacturers of equipment, including several subject matter experts within our organization. At first, these meetings were happening, in a way to check the box. Then they morphed from checking the box to be a little bit more proactive. But ultimately, they had to, and we're happy that they ended up being something that is happening, and it comes naturally to the subject matter expert. They are doing it because this is helping their job, and it helps them be more efficient and more agile. So this has been a very interesting learning for us, and we are reflecting on this, how we managed to take the organization from being extremely reactive for doing it because they've been asked to actually driving the conversations and driving the meetings and using it in their day-to-day business, so that the goals that I mentioned earlier are a result of the normal regular activity, and they are not forced in a way to our individuals. So this has been a very interesting journey. Another one, data-driven decisions are oftentimes they have I wouldn't say consequences, but they have byproducts that you might not be anticipating. So having visibility into the body of work, having the ability to see how long it takes for every step that you are defining, having the ability to see where there is waste and where there are opportunities to reduce that waste, has an element of for a certain number of individuals, has an element of a reflection of personal performance that cannot be ignored. And what I'm trying to say here is the challenge for us has been to remove the personal element and the reflection of a personal delivery from the conversation, and to focus on process and the process improvement, so that our team members will be motivated, incentivized, and comfortable in truly embracing the red and the yellow, and not trying to call out that everything goes well when everything is not going well. So data-driven decisions and access to information and availability of the analytics coming from the production system, this has been truly beneficial, and something that allowed us to progress and to generate the results that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to pause here for a moment to see. I'm not sure if I can see if there are any questions or.
Yeah. So
Roberto, tell me how we are doing.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. We have about 8 minutes, Adrian. So
okay.
I would like to propose we do a couple of things. I have been listening very carefully to what you have been saying, and the different things that really took my attention. So please allow me to perhaps very briefly summarize things that really took my personal attention, as I said. So one thing you mentioned is that this is not something you have started 2 months ago. It's about a 3-year program on how you could actually optimize your supply chain for data center equipment, number one. Number two, obviously the journey has been an interesting one. Some people in resistance and some few things. You told us that you have been able to reduce the supply lead times or cycle times by 50%. I think if I pick up the number correctly, as well as move from 70% to about 90 to 95% on your supply reliability, if you will, right? Achieving arriving at the right time, right? And the other thing that you mentioned, a couple more things that you mentioned to us on top of my head is one, that this is not something you are doing alone, meaning that you are working with your suppliers, right? These are companies that are located in different places. They are joining different sessions, different working sessions. Production control, I think, is the term you used, where they will participate on decisions associated with the production systems, right? And the other thing that you mentioned is that because you are looking at data-driven decisions, and you enable more visibility, not necessarily everybody likes that, because you are trying to, get a sense of reality, and sometimes that reality is not what people like, correct? Did we get it right?
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. So we are getting actually some questions here for you. So let's go through probably 3 questions. So why do you think, let me see here, why do you think your suppliers might be extending lead times? Okay, so this is, do you think your suppliers are extending lead times purposely?
At first, yes. Most of them were. And it's a very simple explanation. In some cases, they did not have a standard process. They were kind of guesstimating how long it might take. So they are quoting in order to over deliver. They were quoting longer lead times, not having an optimized flow into their process. And what's very interesting is you also mentioned earlier, Roberto, what I called out, that we couldn't do it alone without our suppliers, which is absolutely true. But also we cannot be successful without them. And what's interesting is that it's a tag along situation here. We are, by implementing a production system within our organization, we are driving the same discipline with some of our providers that are recognizing in return the benefit of doing it. And they appreciate the fact that we are helping them be better. And it spans not only for the production system, it spans also for the health and safety, for instance, protocols that they are implementing and they are using, and all of the other best practices that we are at first pushing to them, and later on becomes second nature to them, and it helps us be better in return as well. So yes, yeah, this has been what we observed.
Excellent. So we do have, thank you, Adrian. There was a couple more questions for you. This one is an interesting one. So it says, reductions in cycle time by 50% and achieving 95% on time delivery are very good results. How much is because of PPM, or will have occurred simply because of repeat processes if you hadn't used PPM?
So it's a good question, and hard to tell, or how to separate how much is purely PPM and how much is not. What I would say, standardizing the process, we couldn't have done it without standardizing the process. Can you standardize the process without PPM? Probably yes. We couldn't have done it without having the weekly production control meetings. We couldn't have done it without all the dashboards. We couldn't have done it for a number of ingredients that are part of PPM. So I would say each component individually probably can be done outside of PPM, but the fact that all of them are part of PPM allowed us to be successful. So I'm more inclined to say you can piecemeal it, but you have to look at the entire pie and implement it in order to be successful.
Interesting. So yeah, so you're because you have to look at a production system perspective, right? Rather than chunking things. Okay, good. There's more question here. One more question for you. does Microsoft have large storage at each of your data centers, or do you use hubs and or have your vendors hold the materials?
Yeah, there are two types of items here. We have the very large equipment like air handling units or generators that, in a way, the storing place for them is the ultimate place where they are going to be installed. So we do not have a storage for them. We do not have a temporary storage before being finally installed. The whole objective of this lean manufacturing is for the equipment to be manufactured, shipped to our site, and positioned into the final place where they are going to be installed. We do have small storage for a small area for storing the smaller equipment that needs to be tested prior to being installed. So that's happening at our site. Now, when it comes to manufacturers, we do have some agreements with them to have a buffer inventory in place for those items that are in high volume, high quantity, and we know that we can shift the supply to different sites. They're not necessarily tied to one particular site. So it's a combination of all of them, but I would say probably 50% of the volume, not volume, 50% of the critical items are being shipped directly, and the other half stored in some temporary locations to be tested.
Excellent. So we have one more for you, and this is the last one. We need to move into the next session. So there's a person in the audience that is asking the following: approximately how many suppliers were involved or are involved in your PPM program? How did you position what you wanted them to do so they get involved, so they join the effort?
We have close to 50 right now into the process, and I'll be very blunt. They did it at first just because we are probably Microsoft and we are an important customer, but that was not working. I mean, checking the box and doing it just because we asked for it, it couldn't have been. It has to be a win-win situation in order for it to be successful and for us to truly generate the results. So that first year into our journey was dedicated to explaining the benefit to our providers, for them when they are attending the production, the weekly production meetings, to bring the latest intelligence into where they are in the process, and to have that type of critical thinking to perform root cause analysis when there are delays or deviations from the plan, to go back to their internal process and tweak it and adjust it because that's the right thing to do, not because that is what Microsoft is asking them to do. So it's been a journey, and it's different with each of them. Whenever you have a smaller provider, they are obviously more agile and adjusting much faster. When you have large global manufacturers, it's a little bit different. Also, we have a global footprint, so when dealing with different cultures in Asia or parts of Europe or North America, the appetite for embracing change is different. So lots of learnings here on. I'll go back to that change management and the human factor, and the certain cultural norms when doing business in India, let's say, or in other parts of Asia, and knowing how to decode a yes or okay in the United States has a different meaning in Asia, or and a different meaning in Europe.
Excellent. Yeah, and something you mentioned that I would like to highlight, as I did initially with all the things you shared with us, is the fact that you guys went to, I think that's what you said, please correct me if I'm wrong, you went and visited the suppliers, and that was the basis of an initial idea and on what you have called the standard processes, right? Understand how do they produce, what do they do if there's some variability kicking in, and handling with better assessing the processes. Correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we, in relation to that, we have one more question, and this is, I believe, important. So let me finish with this. So the question is Microsoft using PPM data, cycle time, throughput, performance per supplier as the means to decide if you should continue or not working with them?
The answer is yes. But I would say I would nuance it a little bit. We are definitely use PPM data to assess the performance of our providers so that we can have a performance improvement program. I wouldn't say if we are deciding to continue or to stop working with them, but we are analyzing heavily and we are sharing with our providers to identify opportunities for improvement. Because again, together we are stronger. And if we are to look at and rule out providers when they are not performing at their best, probably it will be a matter of time until we'll be alone on this world and have no providers to work with. So
yeah.
it's a journey, and we have to improve, constantly improve, and that's how we are mainly using the data.
Excellent, excellent. I like that answer. Well, Adrian, so look, on behalf of PPI and our audience today, I just want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing such a fantastic journey that Microsoft has started and continues through. And so really appreciate all the details that you brought to the table today. Again, it's a great story of proven success. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.